Turkey has responded to T-Man's firm stance by staying its fair, according to the state-run TRT World. Quote, excluding Turkey, one of the main partners from the F-35 program, is unfair, and that the claim that the S-400 system will weaken the F-35s is invalid, or at least that's what the foreign ministry said. Meanwhile, at the moment, that looming military conflict between Turkey, the Syrian army, and Damascus ally Russia is heating up near Idlib, the Pentagon issued a separate statement Wednesday demanding that the Turkish avoid striking U.S. troops in the region amid a Turkish buildup of forces along the border. So with that being said, it's almost like they're saying that in the next couple days that will happen and we will end up possibly losing some U.S. soldiers out of nowhere, some sort of accident, some sort of, something that will be put out, then pulled back, then changed, then rearranged. I mean, these are the patterns that show up every single year. If people watch this kind of stuff, they totally understand, especially if you watch it really carefully. It seems like these little tiny things end up escalating into bigger things and then de-escalating, and it's usually, when you look in hindsight, to further some sort of agenda. That makes sense to you guys. It's like these little events, the diplomats getting thrown out, and then they throw out their diplomats, and then this happens, and at the very end of it, you realize that they changed stances on things secretly, and everybody agreed with it because some little bad thing happened. Or, some of this is not little, but mind you, it changes opinion. Something horrible happens. The statement warned that the U.S. would consider any unilateral actions into northeastern Syria, and yes, I know I'm saying that wrong, particularly targeting U.S. troops as, quote, unacceptable. So again, this is just more fire and fury kind of stuff going on here. Let's see. A quote, wipe the Soviet Union off the map. Planned U.S. nuclear attack against the USSR. So I've actually talked about this before, by the way. Let's see. According to a secret document dated September 15, 1945, quote, the Pentagon had envisaged blowing up the Soviet Union with a coordinated nuclear attack directed against major urban areas. All major cities of the Soviet Union were included in the list of 66, quote, strategic targets. The tables below categorize each city in terms of area in square miles and the numbers of atomic booms required to annihilate and kill the inhabitants of selected urban areas. And now I hope I just read, and that's probably going to get flagged or something. 6 atomic booms were used to destroy each of the larger cities, including Moscow, Leningrad, Tashkent, Kiev, Kharkov, and Odessa. So if you know about, I'm trying to think of his name. It is The Confessions of a Nuclear War Planner. I've talked about this gentleman many times. I've read the book. And I've talked about it in the fashion that this gentleman was a Vietnam whistleblower, and he also basically went into an office, and his job was to plan not only annihilating Russia, but he said, and he was quoted along with others that worked beside him, there was no plan that considered basically annihilating Russia that did not also include every city in China. So we were going to annihilate China and Russia, every single human being there, or at least that's what they say that their plan was. So he was part of a group of people that would go to work every day, and their plan, their whole job is to plan how to annihilate an entire human being race. I mean, that's what we did. The Pentagon estimated that a total of 204 booms would have be required to, quote, wipe the Soviet Union off the map. The targets for nuclear attack consisted of 66 major cities. One single atomic boom dropped on Hiroshima resulted in the immediate death of 100,000 people in the first 7 seconds. Imagine what would have happened if 204 atomic booms had been dropped on major cities of the Soviet Union, as outlined in the secret U.S. plan formulated during the Second World War. So they're bringing up all this stuff again because a lot has actually been released. Now, things are leaking on the dark web about different plans and things that connect us with the 80s, with the 90s, with even the late 2000s. I mean, we're talking about 2009. There were multiple close calls. Now, I know we've had people call in and say, even we had a caller last night that said nuclear bombs are all fake, that, they don't even exist, and they've been used to basically scare us, out of our britches and to control us. I do believe there is a nuclear bomb until, if I had enough evidence to prove it wrong, then I would definitely change my stance. But yeah, always feel free to comment down below what you think. It says the secret plan dated September 15, 1945, 2 weeks after the surrender of Japan on September 2nd, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri. However, had been formulated at an earlier period, namely at the height of World War II, at a time when America and Soviet Union were close allies. It is worth noting that the Stalin was first informed through official channels by Harry Truman of the infamous Manhattan Project at the Potsdam Conference on July 24, 1945, barely 2 weeks before the attack on Hiroshima. The Manhattan Project was launched in 1939, 2 years prior to America's entry into WW2 in December 1941. The Kremlin was fully aware of the secret Manhattan Project as early as 1942. Were the August 1945 Hiroshima and Nagasaki attacks used by the Pentagon to evaluate the viability of a much larger attack on the Soviet Union, consisting of more than 204 atomic booms. So one theory is that they used that to test to see how well it would actually annihilate the whole people in Russia and China. I believe there are some people connecting this to today, saying that's why we have just stated recently in the last month that we are entirely confident that we could not only wipe them out, but wipe them out cleanly and actually survive and win. So if you want to get to the rest of this story, there's some more stuff in here. Again, I don't want to bore you with the whole thing, but please go check out this article. You can go to marfooglenews.com and you can check it out. All right, next story is Pentagon okays sending 2,100 additional troops to Mexico border. Retired ICE Director Tom Homan says he believes President T-Man's new immigration plan will be needed to be, quote, tweaked in order for it to be passed in Congress. The T-Man administration is beefing up troop levels at the U.S.-Mexico border, with the new acting Defense Secretary Richard Spencer on Tuesday approving a Department of Homeland Security request for an additional 2,100 soldiers. The Department of Defense announced the move on Wednesday. The troops will join 4,500 others at the border. T-Man administration also announces major crackdown on asylum seekers. About 1,100 newly deployed active duty troops will assist with logistical support and aerial surveillance at ports of entry and airports in Texas, according to reports by Politico. Next up, we have, let's see here. This was actually, here we go. I wish we had full screen and we could show you all this. Again, if you're just joining me, we have no internet here, so I really kind of goofy, better for the show. Let's see here. I do want you guys to read this. This is quite interesting. USA's weirdest military bases that are even more mysterious than Area 51. If you want to check this one out, please go to marfooglenews.com. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about Area 51 because over 1 million folks are saying that they are going to basically storm the entire base, which I don't know what they would do. What if they did just start shooting down 1 million people? That would be pretty crazy. Let's see here. Shallow faults. Wait a second here. Let's see. Okay, we got to open this back up again. Shallow fault below Seattle went undiscovered for a millennium. Again, we just had several smaller earthquakes. It says about 1,100 years ago, a major earthquake rocketed Puget Sound, suddenly shooting what is now the restoration point on Bainbridge Island up about 23 feet, while Seattle's West Point sunk more than 3 feet. The quake, which would likely have a magnitude of 7.5, rattled along the Seattle Fault Zone, a several-mile-wide fault that runs east to west from Issaquah to Hood Canal, passing through the stadiums and Alki on its way. It's almost unimaginable that one of Seattle's biggest threats runs right through the middle of the city, and it was discovered less than 30 years ago. One would think it might be difficult to miss such a feature, a 45-mile fracture in the earth running directly through a major city. But discovery of what was dubbed the Seattle Fault Zone was shocking because few suspected that the fault existed before then. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but before I've shown you video, the entire Pike Place market cracked. In fact, it's cracked all the way down the entire mile-long stretch of the market. And it's gotten bigger. I took pictures back in 2002 when I worked down there, and I actually took pictures recently. The crack has not only lengthened from maybe about 8 or 9 feet all the way down the market. So it's slowly basically cracked all the way down, and I believe that's part of it. I mean, you're talking about it's a block over from this whole fault line thing, and half of the city is on each. If the 7.5 rattled downtown Seattle, it would wreak havoc. I believe even worse. I think initially it would be just almost as bad as the Cascadia subduction zone because it will be right directly under the city. I'm talking they made all of the buildings right on top of it. Even if a building was made with the proper foundations to kind of move and jib with the whole movement, you're talking about the ground beneath it just cracking open. You could see, things falling in. That's how crazy this thing is. Geologist Robert Buckman has been investigating Restoration Point when he found the first evidence of the fault's existence, an analysis of sediment which included humus, peat, charcoal, and single-cell organisms buried in the rock. 2 corresponding pieces of land appeared at different elevations, one above and one below sea level. Avalanche data also supported this finding. But the final piece of evidence was in the tree. 3 groves of fir trees slid from their original habitats to grounds 90 feet underwater, located near Mercer Island, Seward Park, and St. Edward Park on Lake Washington. Radiocarbon dating indicated that the trees were between 1,000 and 1,300 years old. Growth rings showed that all trees from the 3 groves died in the same year and season. What's more, the examination of these trees showed striking similarity to a tsunami-driven log found on Magnolia Beach above Elliott Bay in February 1992. The incident would have been catastrophic to the Emerald City that sits along the fault zone today, similar to major quakes recorded in Northridge, California, and Kobe, Japan. Earthquake danger is often in the news for Seattleites these days, especially with the talks of the Cascadia subduction zone being the source of the region's next, quote, big one, which could feasibly reach a magnitude of 9.0 or higher. but a major quake along the Seattle fault zone could be devastating. First of all, quakes produced by the Seattle fault zone are likely to originate closer to the Earth's surface. These are shallow quakes, have the potential to cause more damage because they do not have as far to travel. Quote, shallow earthquake in the middle of the populated area is no small thing. The region should take this as a warning that this is a big-time earthquake country. Craig Weaver, coordinator of the USGS Earthquake Hazards Research in the Pacific Northwest, told Seattle Post-Intelligencer. So again, they are having all sorts of things, predictive programming. They're telling us all these things are going weird. There was this one. I want you guys to read this. This is about how they actually have signs saying Navy submarine base under the Nevada desert? Question mark? Like, what the heck is up with that? I've actually talked about this about 6 months ago, but some say that they recently changed the sign. It used to read Naval Undersea Warfare Training Center. Today it reads Naval Undersea Warfare Center. So they took out the training. It took me a couple times. I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's the same words. They took out training. It says they must have made the change in the past year or so. Hawthorne, Nevada is the U.S. Army depot where ammunition is made, tested, and stored. Endless rows of ammunition bunkers dot both sides of the road. Just to the north of Hawthorne is Walker Lake. The East Walker River drains into it, and over the past 20 years has become shallower and shallower. The lake is about 18 miles long and about 8 miles wide, the longer axis running north and south. Let's see here. There are stories that California and Nevada sit on a shelf underneath, which lies an eastern portion of the Pacific Ocean. Maybe the Pacific Ocean extends under that shelf to Hawthorne, Nevada, or even further. So here's a thought. If you could see, they have this base over here in Ridgecrest, and everybody in Ridgecrest said that the explosions felt like they were underneath. Now, for under us, what if not only are there deep underground military bases, which people have confirmed that they do exist, but the question is, where are they and how many exist and how grandiose is the setup underneath the country? From what I've heard is logistically they can get almost anywhere in the country underground if they need to. That's how they move top secret stuff. That's how they move things without alerting anyone. And it's, not that hard to drill under a city when you have an entire government budget. Especially when you're talking about military budget, which billions of dollars are unaccounted for. We're trillions in missing money, tons of secret projects. We don't know. But again, what if the ocean went all the way into Nevada? What if they have some sort of underground naval base? What if they actually have a naval base underneath the entire country? We don't know. So, live, New Madrid is moving, that the Cratons are moving. Things are experiencing liquefaction, that parts of our country are going to sink. The new Navy map shows that, parts of our country are going to be underwater. Why is that? Well, some say that liquefaction and other things will actually make parts of the country sink. It says US 36 still sinking an inch. It says an inch per hour. So this highway is sinking an inch per hour. That's 24 inches. That's 2 feet a day. Just to put that in perspective, that's a lot. I was going to put it into perspective, but you guys get it. It's 2 feet a day. The highway was only built to sink. You look at the actual thumbnail that I put up, that is Highway 36. It says on Thursday, CDOT authorized $20.4 million for emergency repairs. The money will be used to reimburse CDOT for emergency response as well as RTD for free rides offered last week. Kramer North America, the contractor authorized to repair 36. As for whether taxpayers will be reimbursed, Lepoli says that will be up to the state attorney general whether contractors are taken to court or not. let's see here. Let's see here. Anyone is still here and listening, this is a very important story. Now, why in the world would they gut programs that are aimed at detecting weapons of mass destruction? And I love how they say that it's the T-Man administration. It very well could be under that administration, but there's some weird powers at bay here. Like, why would they do this? Why are they gutting the programs aimed at actually detecting weapons of mass destruction? It doesn't make any sense. It says that the T-Man administration has quietly dismantled or cut back multiple programs that were created after the September 11, 2001 events to help detect or prevent terrorism involving weapons of mass destruction, a Times investigations have found. Now, I don't know if this is because this is from the Times. I don't know what to think about this. We are actually going to look deeper into it, but it says the retreat has taken place over the last 2 years at the Department of Homeland Security, which is primarily domestic responsibility for helping authorities identify and block potential chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats. Now, remember, Georgia just a month ago, for the first time in this entire country have we ever heard of this, had a radiological alert. Basically went out via TV. It went out through radio, and everybody started freaking out. Everybody started calling us, started emailing and saying, what the heck is this? We just got a radiological alert. I don't know why I can't say that dang word. So definitely check this article out. It talks about why they're dismantling it. We're going to look into that because we really do want to know what the heck is going on. Let's see. There was a machine left running while an East Rutherford plant was evacuated for a chemical spill, sparked a fire, sending 2 people to the hospital. Go check that out on marfooglenews.com. Let's see. Midwest and East Coast braces for extremely dangerous weekend heat wave. So another heat wave, and I betcha we're going to have another power outage. It says the numbers are just horrendous. Almost 30,000 species face extinction. Oh, this isn't even the same one. What the heck is going on here? And it didn't even load. That's okay. We'll get into that when we can. Let's see here. Ignition down the street in a place where they actually have everybody on file. See, one thing I don't get about this is what records are they going to use? If this is in a different country, do we have all of China's citizens on record? Do we have Russians citizens on record? Because from one thing, Russia is separating its internet. This is one thing to think about. Is that why Russia is trying to separate internet for things like this, so they don't have things, being hacked and facial recognition that they are using, China's using? But honestly, what would the army need facial recognition for unless it's domestic? Do you guys get this? Like, who do we we just covered this the other day too, and it's funny that the stats came out that over half of us are in their facial recognition software in for the actual government. So they have half of us. They requested DMV and license pictures and all these different things. So who are these goggles for? Are they for the enemy or are they for us? It's a very weird story indeed. It says a modified gamer headset will allow soldiers to see through a drone's eyes, aim around corners, and identify the faces of enemies in their sights. Very soon, U.S. soldiers could be able to identify enemies, suspects, or any persons of interest they are seeking just by looking through goggles on their head. U.S. officials are testing a new headset that will potentially allow soldiers looking through them to recognize the faces of individuals in a crowd, and much more, including translate foreign language street signs into English. see through the eyes of nearby flying bug drones, and train anywhere in the semi-virtual environment, although all through the same lens. Army officials on Tuesday showed off the latest version of their Integrated Visual Augmentation System, or IVAS, the lightweight set of goggles for soldiers, allowing them to blend digital elements into a soldier's field of view. This is like straight out of the movies, guys. I hope people are paying attention to these little changes that end up changing the world. Okay, let's see here. Fort Lauderdale gets temporary relief while crews repair water main break. Officials in Fort Lauderdale, Florida said a temporary fix has restored water service after a main break closed businesses and sent residents scrambling for relief for several return to, quote, near normal sometime Thursday night. Mayor Dean Tantalus said in an evening conference. In the water main, which has increased water pressure. Crews work to redirect the water flow through the backup line and replace the broken pipe. This was not just a minor incident. This impacted many hundreds of people. I like how they said this is not just a minor incident. This impacted many hundreds of thousands of hundreds of people. Hundreds of thousands of hundreds. It was clearly haphazard, he said. It's clearly something that we are going to seek retribution for. Water shut off for several hours. So you're talking about Fort Lauderdale losing all water. Look at the picture here if you can see it. I don't know if it's actually even showing it. All of the shelves are completely empty at every store because people had no water. Think about this, folks. What if your tap water stopped working? What if you don't have water all of a sudden? What if the only water you could get your hands on was in a store? Are you really going to let that dependent on some business that could run out just like that? I hope people prepare for things like this. It's getting to be the point where every day somewhere in the country is having something like this happen. So, let's see here. With that being said, let's see here. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed at least the news portion of this. I don't know if you guys could even see this. This was what I could do with my internet being down. So I told everybody at the beginning, this isn't going to be the greatest stream ever, but we put a lot of time and effort into putting all of these articles onto the website. So if you want to access these articles, you can go look yourself at the thumbnail that is associated with this video. It should be, I wish I could show you. I don't know if I can. Either way, make sure to go over and check that out. I appreciate you guys. I don't know when my internet's going to come back on, so when it does, we will be back to normal shows. Otherwise, tomorrow, if it's still not on by tomorrow afternoon, I will go to somebody else's house and we will do a live show from some other location. We've had our internet cut out several times. If you had your internet go out, if you're on your phone because your house isn't working, let us know in the comments below. We actually have Down Detector. It shows Seattle, California, New York, all these different places with internet out. Not everywhere, though. It's really intermittent. So I don't know what's going on. Again, power outages all over the country. Manhattan, you had Staten Island, then you had Philadelphia, then you had North Carolina, then you had South Carolina for 3 hours. You had Arizona for a little bit. So again, I don't know what to say. I did my best. I hope you guys appreciated it. We did put a lot of time into gathering this and putting it on the website. So please use it. I would say the three most important ones that I could think of were most definitely us saying that we shot down a Ryanian drone, them denying it, and them saying, let's see here, them saying that they actually did take the tanker, that they admitted it. These are setups for Fantastic Freddy's. My prediction, again, if you did not join earlier, is in the next 5 days, there will be an escalatory event that will be based from these events. So this is all going to kind of go one to after. After you watch the news long enough, you see patterns in what we do and what they do. So thank you guys for being here. I apologize. I can't really see the chat. I can't get back to you guys. Again, I did my best. Please stay safe, stay prepared, and Marf out.